Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into the Wisconsin real estate market, specifically the latest read as of April 2025.
Yep. And we're drawing from some solid sources here. The Wisconsin REALTORS Association, the WRA for the statewide numbers.
Right, the official data.
And also insights from John Reuter at Integrity Homes, who's, talking to mortgage folks too, gives us that ground level view.
Exactly. So the mission today is, well, to cut through the noise,
Yeah.
to get past the headlines.
Absolutely. We want to really understand what's going on with sales, prices, inventory, rates, the key stuff.
And figure out what it all means for you, whether you're maybe thinking about buying, selling, or just, keeping tabs.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first up, something that kind of jumps out from the data, sales volume. The headline says home sales were down 10.4% in April 25 compared to April 24. Well, that sounds like a pretty big drop.
It does, yeah. And if you just see that number, you might think, uh-oh, market's slowing way down.
Right.
But, and this is crucial context from the analysis, April 2024 wasn't just some random month. It was actually like one of the hottest sales months ever recorded.
Okay.
It came off this massive 27.7% jump in closings compared to the year before that, April 23. So 24 was a bit of an outlier, a peak.
Ah, I see. So comparing this April to that specific peak month, maybe not the best comparison.
Exactly. It kind of skews the picture. The analysis suggests a more, let's say, meaningful comparison is looking at April 2025 versus April 2023.
Okay, and what does that show?
Well, when you do that, sales were actually up by 14%.
14%. Wow, okay.
Yeah, the expert in the source called that a healthy number. Very positive, actually.
That completely changes the perspective. So it's not a market crash signal. It's more like settling back from a frenzy.
Precisely. A shift towards maybe a more sustainable, balanced pace compared to that absolute peak. Homes are still selling, definitely.
But it takes more effort now.
That's what the analysis points to. Success, buying or selling really hinges on having the right plan, the right strategy for these conditions. It's not just automatic anymore.
Got it. Okay. So that's sales volume. But here's the interesting twist the data brings up. Despite that moderation in sales pace compared to last year's peak, prices, they're still going up. How does that work?
Yeah, that's the real tension point in the market right now. And the main reason the analysis is clear on this is inventory. Or rather, the lack of it.
Still not enough houses for sale.
Pretty much. There just aren't enough homes listed to meet the demand that's still out there, even with that slightly cooler sales pace than the absolute peak.
And the numbers back that up.
Oh, yeah. The median price in April 25, $322,000. That's up 7.3% from April 24.
Wow.
And if you look year to date, the average price is $310,000, which is an 8.8% increase. So definitely still rising.
Okay, so low supply is the driver. Is that supply problem, the inventory situation, getting any better at all?
Actually, yes. There's a bit of good news there in the analysis. Inventory is increasing.
Okay, by how much?
It was up 5.9% compared to the same time last year. So movement in the right direction.
5.9%. That sounds positive, but does that get us close to what's considered like a normal or balanced market?
Not really, no. Unfortunately, not by a long shot. The analysis points out something pretty stark. To get to what's historically considered balanced...
Where neither side has a huge advantage.
Exactly. To get there, Wisconsin would need about 67% more listings than we have right now. 67%.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, so still way undersupplied then.
Definitely. We're making progress, but from a historical view, it's still very much a seller's market in terms of supply.
And is this inventory shortage the same across the whole state? Or does it vary?
Oh, it definitely varies. The analysis highlights some pretty significant regional differences.
Like where?
Well, in the cities, I think Madison, Dane County area was mentioned. Inventory is still super tight, like only 3.2 months of supply.
Very low.
Very low. But then you look at smaller towns, more rural areas. The supply picture is actually improving faster. Some places are getting up to 5 months of supply available.
That's a big difference. Almost 2 extra months of supply.
Huge difference. It creates a totally different experience for buyers depending on where they're looking.
So if you're a buyer feeling squeezed in, say, Madison,
Yeah.
what's the practical tip based on that?
Well, the direct advice from the expert in the source is, seriously consider expanding your search.
Look further out.
Yeah. Check out nearby counties, maybe?
Yeah.
Jefferson, Sauk, Monroe were mentioned as examples. Places where inventory is higher, you might find more options, maybe less of a bidding war situation.
Makes sense. All right, let's shift gears to, the elephant in the room for a lot of people, mortgage rates.
Yep. Always top of mind.
What's the situation there according to this analysis? Where are rates sitting?
So as of late May, when this data was pulled together, the average 30-year fixed rate was hovering right around 6.86%. Yeah. 6.86. Okay. And what are the experts predicting? Are they going up, down, staying put?
The general expectation, based on the mortgage co cited, is that rates will probably stay in a relatively stable range for most of 2025.
Define range.
I think somewhere between, say, 6.3% and 7.0%. That seems to be the zone they're anticipating.
Okay, so stability, not huge swings up or down necessarily.
That seems to be the consensus, yeah. And that's kind of the positive spin in the analysis. Rates aren't really on that consistent upward climb anymore. And there's even a chance maybe they could dip a little towards the end of the year. But, and this is important, nobody's expecting a sudden return to those super low 3% or 4% rates anytime soon.
Right, those days seem gone for now. So given that 6-point-something% reality, what's the advice for folks in the market, buyers and sellers?
Okay, so for sellers, the key takeaway is buyers are really sensitive to these rates. It impacts their monthly payment big time.
Makes sense. So your house needs to scream value. It absolutely has to be priced correctly right out of the gate, and it needs to show really, really well. Think great photos, staging, the whole package. That's how you attract serious buyers now.
And for buyers, what's the advice for them in this rate environment?
For buyers, the advice is pretty consistent. Don't just sit on the sidelines waiting indefinitely for rates to drop significantly.
Because prices are still going up.
Exactly. Waiting could mean you end up paying more for the house itself, potentially wiping out any savings from a slightly lower rate down the line. The classic advice holds. Buy the house you can afford now, and you can always look into refinancing later if rates do fall significantly. Marry the house, date the rate, as they say.
Right. Okay. Now, something else interesting from the analysis, kind of counterintuitive maybe.
What's that?
Despite these rising prices we keep talking about, housing affordability overall has apparently held pretty steady. How does that work?
Yeah, that's a really important piece. It seems strange, but the analysis points to two main reasons. First, average family incomes have actually gone up quite a bit, 7.6%. That helps offset the higher house prices.
Okay, incomes are up. What's the second reason?
The second is that slight stabilization, maybe even tiny dip, in mortgage rates we just discussed. It wasn't a huge drop, but it wasn't climbing steeply either. Those two things together, rising incomes and somewhat stable rates, have kept affordability from getting worse for many families.
So more people might still be able to qualify than they think.
That's the implication, yes. Qualifying is still achievable for a good chunk of the market. And the analysis specifically calls out how certain programs can really help bridge the gap.
Like what?
Things like VA loans for veterans, WHEDA loans, that's the State Housing Authority program, and also a program called Homes for Heroes. They can provide crucial assistance or savings.
Okay, that's a good segue. Let's talk practical advice from the analysis for people who are actually, doing this right now. Starting with buyers, what are the key takeaways?
All right, buyers. Number one, and this is fundamental, get pre-approved for your mortgage early. Super early.
Why is that so critical?
It's not just about knowing your budget, though that's key. It shows sellers you're serious, it gives you confidence, and it clarifies exactly what you can afford before you start looking seriously. In this market, you need that power.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, based on that inventory discussion, broaden your search horizons. Don't be afraid to look at those smaller towns or slightly further out areas where there might be more homes available.
Be flexible geographically.
Exactly. Third, patience is important. Finding the right place takes time. But, and this is the balancing act, you also need to be ready to act fast when a good, well-priced home does hit the market. They still move quickly.
Patience, but readiness. Okay. Anything else for buyers?
Yes, definitely ask about down payment assistance programs. Don't just assume you won't qualify. There might be help available you're not aware of. Explore those options.
Good advice. Now what about sellers? We know it's generally still favorable for them because inventory is low, prices are up. But what specific strategies should they focus on?
Right. It is still a good time to sell if the home is presented and priced correctly. Because buyers are being careful. First impressions are just massive.
Meaning?
Professional photos are a must. Clean staging, good curb appeal. These aren't optional extras anymore if you want top dollar and a quick sale. They're essential.
And pricing.
Price it right from day one. The analysis really hammers this home. Overpricing is the kiss of death in this market. It leads to the listing just sitting there, getting stale, and then you end up chasing the market down with price cuts. Be realistic from the start.
What about things like inspections?
Good point. Consider doing a pre-inspection. Get ahead of any potential issues. Making necessary repairs before listing can build huge confidence with buyers and might help smooth out the whole transaction process, maybe even speed it up.
Proactive steps.
Okay.
You mentioned the Homes for Heroes program earlier as one way people can get help. Can you give us a bit more detail on that from the source?
Sure. Yeah, it was highlighted as a really tangible way to provide savings, a kind of give back to certain folks in the community when they buy or sell.
And who qualifies for that?
The analysis listed veterans, firefighters, police officers, nurses, teachers, and other healthcare workers. Basically, community heroes.
That's great. And what kind of savings are we talking about? Is it significant?
It seems so, yeah. It apparently helps these clients save thousands. The average savings mentioned in the discussion was over $3,000.
Wow, that's substantial.
Right. And the expert really emphasized it's a genuine give-back program. No weird catches, no strings attached, just real savings for those groups.
That's definitely worth knowing about.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize all this. We've got these nuanced sales numbers. Price is still rising because the inventory is low. Inventory is slowly getting better, but still way off balance. Rates that are higher but stable. Affordability holding steady. What does it all mean? How did the analysis sum up this current moment in the Wisconsin market?
It's described as a really unique moment. Kind of a transition phase, maybe.
How so?
Well, you've got mortgage rates that are definitely higher than we got used to, but they seem to have found a level, they're stable-ish. You've got inventory improving, which is good news, but it's still nowhere near enough to really balance things out.
Which keeps pushing prices up.
Exactly. That's the dynamic. Improving supply, but still not enough, leading to continued price growth, all within this higher but stable rate environment.
And the bottom line message from the expert, based on all that
Opportunities are definitely still out there, abundant even.
Yeah.
But, and this is the key, navigating this specific mix of conditions successfully really depends on having good advice. Working with a knowledgeable team who understands these dynamics is pretty critical right now.
So for you listening, whether you're a first-time buyer trying to get in, someone looking to move up, maybe downsizing, or even just trying to figure out what your own home is worth, understanding these specific forces we've unpacked.
The story behind the headline.
Exactly. That's really crucial for making smart decisions and moving forward with some confidence and a clear strategy right now. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive on the Wisconsin real estate scene as of April 2025, here's maybe a final thought to chew on.
Okay.
We've seen how these big statewide numbers, sales down from a peak but up from normal, prices rising, inventory tight but slightly better, rates stable but high, how they tell a story but maybe not your specific story.
Right. Averages can hide a lot.
Exactly. So consider this. Maybe the deciding factors for your success, whether you're buying or selling, hinge less on that statewide average rate or median price, and more on things like, what's the actual inventory look like on the specific street or neighborhood you care about?
Hyperlocal conditions.
Right. How well is your specific home priced and presented compared to the direct competition? Are you tapping into programs like Homes for Heroes or WHEDA if they apply to you?
Just specific strategies.
Yeah. So the question it leaves us with is maybe. How much weight should you give the big picture market forecast versus the concrete realities, the specific opportunities, and the tailored strategies available right there in your own local situation? Something to think